Hey there, and welcome back to the Mini Weekend. I'm your host, Jack. Let's get into it, Mini. Soda of the podcast. Or drink of the podcast, I guess we've been calling it recently. I told you guys we would find it, and we found it and got it. I was trying to remember. I couldn't find it, but I think it was about a month, maybe 6 weeks ago. Poppi spoiled some news on their website saying they were going to be coming out with a holiday drink, and they did, and we copped it. It's their cranberry fizz drink, and it does not disappoint. Looking into the drink a little bit more, it sounds like this was a crowd favorite from last year or 2 years ago. Needless to say, this was before I knew about Poppi and everything like that. So this is the first time I've had it. And believe me, my parents got some of these. I've held off trying this one until tonight. And I gotta say, as someone who doesn't drink, this tastes very much like, oh my gosh, why can't I think of it? I can't think of the name, but it's essentially that drink that you do cranberry juice with champagne. For the life of me, I can't think of it, but I used to love it. It used to be one of my wife and I's favorite holiday or seasonal drink, and that's exactly what this tastes like. Doesn't disappoint. It's only out for a limited time. So yeah, go check it out. I'm very, very happy. Sip, sip, celebrate. The holiday season is back, and so is the fan fave festive flavor. Because who needs gifts when you can have a refreshing, bubbly, fantastic soda instead? Crack it open, share it with loved ones, and get merry with cranberry. Happy holidays from your friends at Poppi. Hashtag sodas back. And gosh, back is it? I don't think I'm gonna have to go get my own 24 pack of this. They keep telling everything I'm seeing on social media and everything like that. They're saying it's only out for a limited time. So go get it. If you're looking for it, it's out. It's great. Good amount of cranberry. Not too overwhelming. Excuse me, a little bubbly. I really like it. I'm gonna go 8-8. 8-8. I would say this is probably one of my favorite seasonal or like any time of seasonal drink. So I really like it. Go check it out if you haven't. And going forward here, let me know if there are drinks that you want me to try as well too. So yes, drinkpoppy.com. Go check them out. They have a ton of other flavors that you can check out as well, which is really cool. And then you can also find them on Instagram and TikTok. So that's what we got for you guys here today. And then before we jump into it, yes, I know I'm kind of congested. I sound congested, nasally, that kind of stuff. I actually don't feel that bad, but I do got some stuff in my throat, so I'm going to try my best not to clear my throat too many times for you guys tonight. So with that, let's move on, but do bear with me. So it's been 2 weeks since we've been on. So as far as Tommie Town is concerned, the Tommies have been in action for quite a bit since we came on. For the men's hockey team, they've had a rough go as they have not won since we were last on. 2 weekends ago, they were up in Bemidji State. They came away with a tie in game 1, 2-2 tie. Excuse me. Bemidji State came away with the extra CCHA point with the shootout win, and then Bemidji just beat us outright 1-2 to the second night, and then this last weekend they lost two goal games to the Lake Superior Lakers. First night and then on the 30th, 3-5, and with only with only 3 games left before their holiday break, they're sitting at a measly 3-8-4 on the years. Ideally, not where you'd like to be. Truthfully, we didn't really do preseason predictions for them and everything like that, but I definitely, like, looking at this, would have thought we would have won 1, 2, 3, like 4, like the bare minimum 3, maybe 4 more games. Like, I'm not saying this team was going to be great, but I thought they carried over a lot of good talent from last year coming into this year, and had a promising season upon themselves. So, if they want to get back in the thick of things in the CCHA play, they're going to have to kind of get things going here before the holiday season, and then take the holidays to kind of regroup and kind of jump into 2025. So with that, the rest of the week before the holiday break for them, they will be in Houghton, Michigan to take on Michigan Tech this weekend. Friday night's game will be at 6:07, and then on Saturday's game will be at 5:07. And then after that, they will only have one more game against St. Cloud State University on December 20th. And that will conclude their 2024 section of the year for them. So that's what we have for the men's team. And then for the women's team, they haven't had a great start to the season as well. In their defense, they've played a lot more top teams, and what I mean by that is they had 2 losses to number 5 Minnesota Duluth. They had a tie, which was a shootout win, and a loss to number 8 St. Cloud State. They had 2 losses to number 2 Ohio State, and then 2 losses to the Wisconsin Badgers, as well as Clarkson, who was number 8 when they played them, and then Penn State they tied, who was 12 this last weekend in the Smashville Showcase, which puts them at 5-11-2 so far in the early part of the season, which, again, for them, just like the men's team, isn't where you want to be, obviously, but playing some of those top teams, it's good exposure. It's a good measuring stick, if nothing else, to kind of see where they are kind of going forward with talent and recruiting and all of that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, that's where the gals sit. Just like the men's team, they have a series with the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers this upcoming weekend, Friday night, 2 nights from now, at 7 p.m. And then Saturday the 7th at 6 p.m. And then that will be their last time in action before they have an exhibition game with St. Cloud State on January 4th after the New Year's. Good luck to the men and women's hockey teams, kind of getting the early part of the season under their belts and kind of learn from that and going forward. And then for the basketball teams, I kind of knew that I shouldn't say all, the winter sports, the college sports kind of have that winter break for Christmas and everything like that. I didn't realize that the basketball teams don't have as much of a break as the hockey teams do. But needless to say, the men's team, they have been in action and have also, very similar to the men's basketball team, have had kind of a lackluster start to the season as well, despite holding a 6-4 record. Earlier tonight, they kicked off their first of 2 games in the Summit League Big Sky Challenge, taking care of Northern Colorado by a score of 87-75. They were led by Miles Barnstable's 20 points. And they're now a perfect 3-0 in that challenge that just started last year. But since we were on last, the 20th, the men's basketball team lost to Wolford, which was a winnable game. Lost to beat Portland State 91-65. Lost to Milwaukee, close one, which was another winnable game, and then beat Chicago. So really, this team should be, 8-2, and are very much a team like the Golden Gophers, where if you're going to have a good season, especially this young in their Division I career, you really have to maximize on the lesser opponents in your non-conference schedule, because night in and night out within your conference basketball games, it's just going to be a dogfight. Would love to see him with a couple extra games, but hey, that's just how the dice rolled here. They'll be in action on Saturday to take on Montana to wrap up the Big Sky Summit Challenge. And that will be the only game that they will have between now and the next podcast. Western Michigan, they will take on a week from this Friday on the 13th from a little bit of break. And then they will be in action a couple more times before the brief holiday break for them. And then for the women's team, they're having a great start to the season. They are having a great start to the season. Unfortunately for them, they suffered their loss in the first of their 2 Big Sky Summit Challenge games against Northern Colorado. Easily winnable game for them, but just couldn't really make the extra push to get the win. But nonetheless, they're still playing very, very well. Sitting at with 4 games left in 2024. They're sitting with a 6-3 record, which is amazing. Once again, for those that maybe don't remember, they started off the season 3-0 and on a roll. And I really hope to see them kind of take that next step. Part of the reason, this 6-3 record kind of has me excited for this women's team is because last year they only won a measly 12 games, so not even halfway through the season, and they are almost halfway to their win total from last year, which is pretty awesome, and especially with St. Thomas's in terms of their Division One careers. I would say most of the sports are farther ahead than I think a lot of people maybe would have anticipated. So always nice and fun to see that. Jade Hill, Joe Langdon, holding things down, really helping out this team, scoring 20 to 30 points on a nightly basis to help them get these wins. And very similar to the men's team, they will only be in action one time between the next podcast, except they will be in Moscow, Idaho on the 7th to wrap up that challenge, like I mentioned, at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So, yeah, that's what we have for our college winter sports. Before we move on, I kind of blew my mind earlier. Obviously wanted to say I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Obviously, once again, I apologize for the late notice, but really wanted to do a podcast last week. It just didn't work out with my schedule. Once again, I know it was similar to last year. It was kind of a late notice, but yeah, we're going to do our best here to go on a weekly basis, unless noted. And yeah, more than anything, I hope everybody enjoyed their Thanksgiving break, had some nice time with family, was able to catch up, and just had an overall good weekend. So, with that, before jumping into our wrapping up a college and giving our picks, I do want to note the Minnesota Golden Gophers are awaiting their bowl game. My guess, I need to do a better job of paying attention to college football as a whole rather than just the Tommie football team and the Gopher football team. But my guess is maybe not by the next podcast, but by this time, or by Friday, Saturday of week 16, the Gophers will know their bowl game. They're obviously eligible, 7-5. And with their big, huge win against the Wisconsin Badgers, they made the Badgers ineligible for bowl play, which you love it. I mean, I personally have nothing against the Badgers, but as a Minnesota boy, anytime you can beat up on any Wisconsin team, whether it be the Brewers, the Badgers, Packers, the Bucks, any of those teams, it's always fun to see. So good to have Paul Bunyan-Zachs back in Minnesota. Couldn't be happier. Max Brosmer had an incredible game, leading 17 of 26 passes for just under 200 yards and 2 TDs. Once again, Darius Taylor had a high of 143 yards on 32 attempts, which is incredible. And yeah, their stars came out to play, and the Badgers, if I'm being completely honest, didn't look great, but it doesn't really ever seem to matter how good or bad these teams are. Whenever they play, it's usually always a good, solid game. So yeah, super glad to get the win. Like I said, I'm guessing after, because this week is technically week 15, but week 15 is always the conference championship week. So after this week, between this weekend and next weekend, the committee will get together and they're going to decide who the top 12 teams are, those kinds of things. And then with that, they will start to divvy up, okay, those that weren't, in the top 12 essentially, with all that kind of stuff. Where are we going to put what bowl games and all that kind of stuff? So it'll be interesting to see which game we get. Always a good time when the Gophers are bowl game eligible. So with that, let us jump into our college football week 15 picks for you guys. Some of you, not really questions, but have commented that I've been kind of going to the side a little bit here, and it's to accommodate those graphics to put over here for our picks and stuff like that. We're going to try doing a better job of kind of going back and forth maybe during it. But a lot of you guys earlier in the podcast or the screens were just smaller and harder to read. So we're just going to give more space for that. Kind of tedious, but whatever. Anyways, college football week 15, better known as championship week. Here are our 3 picks. First one, I like Boise State as 4-point favorites over UNLV. Here's the reason. Ashton Jeanty. Plain and simple. He's a complete stud at running back, and in my opinion, should be the Heisman favorite. Just take a look at his numbers in comparison to the other running backs that have won Heisman before, and there is zero reason this guy shouldn't be the Heisman. He's good, and Boise State won a lot of games this year. I have a feeling that he's going to rush for well over 200 yards against UNL's defense, who averages just under a hair of 350 total yards. The average giving up 350 total yards on offense this year. Couple that with the fact that I think Boise State's defense has been playing really well lately and is on the rise. Honestly, I really believe that Boise State should be winning this game by at least a touchdown. So, like I said, give me Boise State -4. A second game I like in championship weekend, Oregon as 3.5-point favorites over Penn State. Oregon this season has really been kind of playing up or down to their opponents or competition, if you will. So I think they're going to show up against Penn State in Indy. I think Dan Lanning is ready to unleash the hounds and try to blow out the Nittany Lions and show them that even though we're in a new conference, we're still a very good team and a team not to be taken lightly in the Big Ten. So I like Oregon covering that 3.5-point spread. And then finishing off championship week, I am taking Georgia, who is, yes, you're hearing this correctly, 2.5-point underdogs to Texas. I don't know how that's possible. Georgia's already beaten Texas once this year at Texas. I think they get the job done this week. I know everybody is high on Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, but Georgia knows what to expect at SEC championship games. They've been there, done that. They know what it takes to win. I think Kirby Smart, for all those reasons, will have his team ready to go. I think Carson Beck is ready to go, and that Bulldogs defense is going to stop Quinn Ewers, in my opinion, who, let's be honest, didn't look great last week against the A&M. So, like I said, give me Boise State as 4.5-point favorites, Oregon as 3.5-point favorites, and Georgia as 2.5-point underdogs to the Texas Longhorns. So, yeah, that is what we have for our college picks, and that wraps up our college portion of the episode. Next topic. The Wild have been playing unbelievable hockey, but before we get into that, we have a couple of shout-outs for this Wild team. So for those that don't know, in place of the All-Star game this year, the NHL and I don't even know, not recognition, but working with the International Hockey Federation, will be putting on what they're calling is the Four Nations Face-Off. And it'll be kind of like a round robin tournament, which is kind of the best of the best. I don't know a ton of specifics. They haven't really come out yet. It's not supposed to be happening until February. So I'm guessing more information will come out within the next month, 5 weeks. But the reason I bring it up is because they have already announced the team's pending injuries. So far, the Wild have 5 members that will be in action in the Four Nations face-off. Philip Gustafsson, Jonas Brodin, and Joel Eriksson Ek will all be on Team Sweden, and Matt Boldy and Brock Faber will be on Team USA. So obviously can't wait to see them in action. A huge congratulations to all of them. Very well deserved. And for those that may be thinking, what the fuck? What about Kirill Kaprizov? Slow your roll. Like I said, it's called the Four Nations Face-Off, so there's only 4 teams in the round-robin tournament. It's the U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Finland, and unfortunately, Kirill is Russian. So if there was a Russian team, 1,000,000%, this guy would be on it. I mean, he is currently, He's currently tied for first in the league with 39 points and sitting at third place in the league with 15 goals. Like, he is just on one, and on any given night, he's 1, 2, 3 in both those categories. And then on the flip side, you got to give credit where credit's due. My brother Dan could not have been more right about the fact that Philip Gustafsson has the ability to play very well. And if he does, we are going to do very well. He's currently leading the league with a 2.04 goals against average and a 929 save percentage. It's going to be hard to keep those numbers up for an entire season. But again, that's why you got Marc-Andre Fleury. That's why you got Jesper Wallstedt, if God forbid, something were to happen. But at the end of the day, he's winning games for us. He's tied for the third most wins in the league already. Who Wild currently have a an NHL high 38 points, which is just incredible to say the least. They are currently riding, I believe it's a 3-game win streak, and again 4-game win streak. And honestly, we talk about this all the time, and I was talking with my coworker earlier today about this, and the Wild so far, knock on wood, have not dug themselves a hole. You look at this, this team, and they haven't won, or they haven't lost more than 2 games in a row. And they also haven't won more than 4 games in a row, which is totally fine. Like, I think a lot of casual fans have this preemptive thought that, hey, if you're a good team, you should be winning 20 games in a row. You should just be blowing guys out and just be far and better team. But it's like, well, there's an 82 game schedule that's taking place here, and even the best teams lose here and there, so you can't really expect a team to go on these 10, 15, 20 game winning streaks the entire time. Well, Jack, does that mean you're saying they can't win more than 4 or 5 at a time? No. All I'm saying is if you minimize your losing streaks, that's essentially what it comes down to. I think what separates the great teams from the good teams is the good teams have the ability, the great teams have the ability to not let losing streaks go on for more than 2-3 games at a time, and don't get overzealous about, we need to win so many games in a row. Whereas good teams, they can, at a moment's notice, they can lose or win 5 to 8 games in a row, which is not what you want, because you just don't want to be digging yourself those holes where we were looking at it, my coworker and I were looking at it last year. I'm going to pull it up here. What was it? From most of November, from November 9th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight games we lost in November. And we were kind of that, and then we lost, and then in January we went on streaks of, and then essentially from December 30th to January 18th, we won 2 games. So we didn't go on that big of losing streaks, but we didn't win very many games. We lost 4, won 1, lost 4, won 1, and then lost another one. So going into January 19th, when you're 18, 21, and 5 in a very aggressive and very competitive Central Conference or Central Division, it's very tough to overcome that and be prominent and put yourself in a position to be ready come playoffs. So I think they're playing really good hockey right now. They're getting scoring from everywhere. Spurgeon's scoring, their top guys are scoring, which is something that even I kind of talked about, at the beginning of the season. I think, you knew you were going to get good production. It's amazing the production we're actually getting from Kirill Kaprizov. But you figured you were going to get this kind of production from those guys, but you needed other guys stepping up, because I didn't, as much as I love to see it, I really didn't anticipate Kirill taking this step this year. But it's amazing. You love to see it. Marco Rossi's coming into his own. Brock Faber is still one of the best defensemen, in my opinion, in the league. Eriksson Ek is winning tons of faceoffs for us. He, so good, but he's also starting to be kind of that. He's a tall guy, so you hope he would, but he's becoming one of those prominent, hey, don't fuck with my goalie, don't fuck with my star players. Foley's a big guy. Like, this team is playing really well, really good hockey. And going into the thick of things here, like, they're gonna be really fun to watch. And like I said too, if they can really take care of the puck and continue to win games here and there, they're gonna be just fine. And they're doing all of this. Kirill is doing all of this without his partner in crime in Matt Zuccarello. So when he comes back, it could potentially be, I think, the 8th I saw. I could be wrong. We could have a lot of things to talk about, and things could even be progressing even better. So I will leave you guys with that for the Wild. For those that are interested, Friday night, the 6th, they will start a 3-game road trip. They'll be in Anaheim on Friday at a PM game against Trevor Zegras and the Anaheim Ducks, which I fucking love their new logo. That thing is sick. They never should have gotten away from that. And then Saturday, they'll be in LA to play the Kings at 7 p.m. And then wrapping up their 3-game road streak. They will be in Utah for the first time ever for a 8:30 game on Tuesday the 10th. You can bet your ass I'm watching that game. I'm excited to see what this stadium looks like that they're playing in. So yeah, go Wild. On the topic of teams that are doing well right now, this Wolves team seems to be cutting a corner here. Currently, they just got done beating up on the Clippers tonight. Currently on a 3-game win streak against LA teams, which I know a lot of people. Sorry, I know a lot of people are like, well, these are teams that people didn't anticipate to be great this year. No, but coming into that first game against the Clippers, we were 9-10. They were 12-9. Record wise, they were the better team than us. This Laker team is a Laker team that started off 10-4. They were 12-9, and we got to 10-10 on them. And then, very similar with this Clipper team too. I mean, I think I will be interested to see what we're able to do these next couple games against Golden State. Like, if we can get through, we got Golden State 3 times in the next 6 games, another game against LA. Like, this team has what it takes, and you've seen these last 3 games. This defense finally kind of coming to life. And very similar to the Wild, where you don't necessarily need you don't necessarily need this stymie Wolves defense to be playing lights out unbelievable every single night. There's going to be nights where they're going to win with good defense, but it's going to be 112 to 109 game, whatever like that. But for the first my gosh, that's what I was going to say too. The other impressive part about this schedule or this run they're currently on their last 3 games. This is the first time anybody in the league this year has held 3 opponents in a row under 100 points. And for those casual fans, I don't think you realize how much of a big deal that is with how offensive and 3-point centric this league and this era is. That's huge. You're getting hands in guys' faces. You're, getting up on them. You're making them kind of bump into you and kind of create that offensive foul if they're going to drive on you. You're putting hands up. You're making things confusing, similar to Brian Flores' defense, if you will. We'll get there. Don't you worry. But they're playing great defense right now. I mean, looking at this schedule, not even looking at the schedule, when they play like they have these last 3 games, I've said it before, I'll say it again. There isn't a team in this league that they can't beat. So they just got to continue to keep this up. They unfortunately, before this 3-game winning streak, went on a 4-game skid where they, lost to 2 teams for sure, probably 3 teams that they very, very well should have beat. And they, barely lost to a really good Boston team in Boston. So it was a tough go, but, again, we talked about this, this team, it takes a while to kind of get the wheels going. But one guy I did want to hype up, Rob Dillingham. It's a little earlier than I anticipated, but he is coming in and he's contributing. He's only playing on average 8.4 minutes per game. And if you look at his stats, he's only averaging 3.88 points per game. But that's only because his first couple games for us, he kind of came in garbage time. And these last couple games that he's coming for us, he's played a lot. You look at that game against Houston, he played 27 minutes. He got 12 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. On 5 for 13 from the floor. Boston, he played 16 minutes, finished 14 points with an assist, 60% shooting, 50% from downtown. And then even Toronto, he played 10 games, 10 minutes, 2 points. So he's kind of come along here. He is a little banged up right now, but I think when he's healthy, I think he's going to be an integral part of this rotation. You saw a guy like Josh Minot earlier tonight kind of step into a role for us with kind of helping out, taking some of that load off of Connolly, which as good as Connolly is and as solid as he has looked this season, it's just needed. It's needed at this point because he's older and you don't want to play those guys any more than you need to because you want them ready for the big games and for the playoffs too, and obviously. So yeah, I'm super. I've been talking about all year. I'm super excited for this Wolves team. Like I said, I think they're turning the corner. They're finally learning how to play with each other and not only play for each other, but like play together and hold each other accountable. Like, that is the key in the NBA to being a successful team. Anthony Edwards is still leading the way, 26.2 points per game. Julius Randle is right behind him with 21 points per game. Also averaging 6.7 rebounds per game. Naz Reid off the bench is averaging 13 points per game, 5 rebounds a game, and a steal and a half. And then you got your guy Rudy Gobert averaging 10.6 and 11.1 per game, which is just unbelievable. Jaden McDaniels 9.9, 9.4, DiVincenzo 8.8, Connolly 8.6. The list goes on. This team is deep. But again, they just have to, when they are playing together, playing for each other, and holding each other accountable, and hey, get your ass back on defense. Like, hey, let's do these things. Those are the kind of teammates that you want to play with, because if you're not going to hold guys accountable, you shouldn't be in the NBA. So that's my quick take on that. For the Wolves, they will be in action two more times before the next podcast. Friday, they have a 9 p.m. game with the Golden State Warriors, and then Sunday they have a 7:30 game with the Golden State Warriors, and then we'll be off. We'll be off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before coming home for a quick game against the LA Lakers. So super excited. Keep your eyes peeled. This team is getting going. So we're now in the Vikings NFL portion of the podcast. Before we get too much into picks, Vikings game, looking at last week's game, looking ahead, there was one thing I wanted to kind of talk about. I was a little surprised nobody reached out with a question about it, but regardless, this was something that I was wanting to talk about. Quarterback sliding. For those that don't know, Trevor Lawrence took a massive hit by Alshire this last week. He has now been officially suspended for 3 games, and there have been a lot of people talking about this. I think the length of the suspension, given the time of the year, is appropriate. 3 games, Houston's going to need him. He is like, I don't know that I'd say he's a dirty player. He's always a hard hitter. He's always going to give you everything, and he's going to do everything he can to get your ass on the ground. But he's an integral part to that defense. And I am not going to lie to you guys. My stance on this whole QB sliding thing is, I don't know what you guys feel about this, but I feel like my stance is kind of in the minority. So I've heard a lot of people talking about, let the defense play, let them hit, let them do this. Like, they're already with DPIs and all that kind of stuff. Like, they're already limited. And then there are a couple different takes on the side of the quarterbacks, specifically, like, hey, tell them they can't run, they got to stay in the pocket, this, that, and the other thing. My stance would be, you have to tell these guys, stop fucking sliding feet first. I think that is the issue. I think it's, and I can't remember who I heard say it, but I heard one guy say it, and I'm just like, yes, that right there. Like, he couldn't have said it any better. And he essentially alluded to, if you're in college or if you're in the NFL, unless you are in the open field, and when I say open field, for those that don't know, is when you're running down the field, nobody's around you, and you see guys, and you're gaining more yards than you need, and you sense guys coming in, and you slide down. Unless you're in like that, you should not be diving feet first. You should be doing anything else. You should be telling them, hey, if guys are coming for you, dive head first. You should be telling them, give yourself up. You should be telling them, lower your shoulder. You should be telling them, go to the sidelines. You should be telling them, do anything but slide feet first. And the reason I believe this too is because, it's been a while, but I used to play football too. And I was really young when I did. But these big guys that are athletes, when you have 2 men in the prime of their life in top physical shape, full sprint at each other, this defensive player is going to do what he can to get this guy down as quickly and as hard as possible so that he does not get up. Because how many times do you see a guy hit a guy and stuff like that, and the guy puts his hand in the ground and is just able to spin out and keep running? Far too many times. So yes, I am of the notion that if you want to be a quarterback, if your coaches care about you, or coaches, if you care about your quarterback, You should not be telling them to slide. The only reason they should ever be sliding feet first is if they're in the open field and there's nobody around them. Any other scenario, they are a running back and they should not be sliding feet first. They should be sliding head first. They should be vying for that position. Like literally anything else, and that hit just wouldn't have happened. So, needless to say, I think the Jags are done. Actually, they are. Fun fact: coming into this week, what are we on now in the NFL? Week 14. Only the Giants, Raiders, Jaguars, and Pats are eliminated from playoff contention. And yes, that is one NFC team and three AFC teams. But yeah, short and simple. Do not slide feet first. It's dangerous. The defensive guy doesn't know if he should be pulling up, and if so, when. And there are a lot of close calls too. And it's hard for refs to initiate and do that too. How many times do you see a guy going like if this is a QB, how many times do you see a guy going like this? And as he's going down, this guy's going down, but then he has to like pull off. Like I've seen a couple times this year, he pulls off and he makes a little bit of contact, but it's not substantial. He makes contact, and of course his offensive buddies are, "Where's the flag?" And the refs are like, "Look, he pulled up. He had no intent. Yeah, he made a little bit of contact, but it's not that big of a deal." That, in my opinion, is 100% the right call. So that's my piece I want to say on that. You don't want to see guys like, God forbid, Trevor Lawrence. You look at Andrew Luck. Some of these guys, like, you don't want to see their careers cut short because of something out of their control. Like, if they're wanting to hang up, it should be on their term. It shouldn't be because, or God, look at Tua. You don't want it to be because, they made one, not even a bad decision. They made a business decision. Somebody else. It's a freak event. You don't want to see them happen. Any Hoosier, once again, like I said, nobody really asked any questions, but one thing I thought we would do coming up on the final 5 weeks of the season is looking at the current playoff picture versus what I had predicted. So once again, I'm going to scoot on over to the side here so that we can put up our graphic over here. And clearly, we'll start with the NFC. Clearly, I don't think anybody could have seen San Fran being this depleted and this injured. I mean, honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I did a lot better with the NFC versus the AFC. So, like I said, we'll look at the NFC here first. 5 of the 7 current teams in playoff projections that I had at the beginning of the season are currently in it. And I kind of thought the one thing I kind of go over with this is kind of biggest surprises both ways. Biggest surprise, obviously, that biggest shocker of teams that aren't in there. Really, to me, the only one is the 49ers. I don't think you could have seen all of this unfold and them having this many injuries. But needless to say, if at the beginning of the year you said they were going to be this depleted, I probably would have put them where they are right now. Other than that, I mean, currently Detroit and Philadelphia are both, where I thought they'd be just a seed higher. Atlanta is exactly where I thought they'd be. And then there's the other 3 teams. I mean, I guess I would say of the teams that I didn't have in the playoffs, the biggest one to me is the Vikings. Just because I kind of figured they'd be in the thick of things, maybe kind of flirting with that 7th spot and just not making it. But they're comfortably in that 5 spot. And if Green Bay loses tomorrow night, they're going to have 2 games on Green Bay, sitting good. But yeah, like I said, overall, not super off, and overall, I'm pretty happy with my predictions and how they've shaped up. Obviously, like I said, only the Giants in the NFC are mathematically eliminated. And coming into this week, there is not a single NFC team that has clinched a playoff spot. The Detroit Lions can clinch a spot tomorrow night with the win against the Packers. However, our AFC looks a lot different. Obviously, the one thing I was very, very, very right about was the Kansas City Chiefs. They're doing better than I thought at this point, but I think everybody figured the AFC was the Chiefs to lose. They're exactly where they are. Fun fact, like I said, Kansas City and Buffalo are the only 2 teams that have clinched a spot. Kansas City has technically clinched a spot in the playoffs, not the division yet. They can do that with a win against the Chargers this week. But Buffalo has clinched the division. That's the only difference. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, the biggest shock is obviously Cincy and Miami. if I had to pick one or the other, I would probably say Cincinnati. I don't think anybody saw this team's defense being this horrendous. The amount of points that this offense is putting up and they're still losing these games is beyond me. They're currently at 4th and 8. So, they obviously can't get to 4-8. So they obviously can't get to 12-5. But with Pittsburgh being at the top at 9-3, getting the division title is not out of reach yet. That defense needs to fucking figure their shit out, though. But yeah, very similar, or similarly to the NFC. 3 of the current 7 teams I had in the playoffs. So I didn't do it as well so far with this, but I can change in 4 weeks. Obviously, like I said, Buffalo. Hey, hats off to Josh Allen. I do love that guy. I think he is an amazing person. Not even football player, but especially football player, but better person. And he's proved me wrong. He doesn't have a ton of star talent on that offense anymore, and he's still finding ways to win games. He's a dog. He's getting it done, and he's looking good, fucking doing it too. So hats off to him. He's proven me wrong. I thought they were going to be the bottom half of the AFC for sure. Pittsburgh, a lot of people might say, Jacksonville is kind of, should be a shocker, but not really. I kind of thought that Jacksonville would kind of similarly, but the opposite of like the Vikings, where they were kind of right in the middle, where they were kind of good enough to maybe slip into the playoffs and happen to, but not great that they could, win a game. Kind of a thing. So yeah, like I said, obviously, Houston so far, they're seed off, but that's who I had picking it going. And yeah, it'll be an interesting once again for that Vikings game. Didn't cover the points, unfortunately, but hey, a win is a win. And I think, excuse me, one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about for the Vikings is it amazes me how the narrative of this team has just changed the entire year. Don't know what I mean? Let me explain it to you. So the first 5 wins, everybody thought that we were going to lose to this Giants team that thought they were going to be bad. We blew them out. We didn't even beat them. We blew them out. And everyone was like, okay, they'll be better than the crappy Giants, but no. And then we beat the 49ers by a touchdown. Okay. Then we blow out the Texans. And then we have a very good game, but close game against the Packers. And then we beat the Jets. Now, at this point, 5-0, a lot of people are talking, gosh, this team is looking really good, everything and that, but they're saying, hey, whoa, time out. This team has not been behind a lot in their games. What is this team going to do when they face adversity and they're not winning the entire game? How are they going to overcome that? Well, we followed that up with 2 losses in 2 games that we were behind most of the game. And needless to say, the media just jumped all fucking over that shit. This team is awful. When they're when they're losing, they can't overcome those losses. Rah, 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 rah. And then all of a sudden, we get back on a 5-game winning streak where it seems like the narrative is either one or 2 things. It's, oh my gosh, this team is not playing up to their standards. This is a better football team. Or, hey, the right one. They're finding ways to win. You look at this Colts game, the Jags, the Colts game. I don't think the Jaguars. Yeah, maybe. I think Colts, Jaguars. I think all of these 5 games, except for the Bears, we were losing at some point in that game, and we found a way to come back and win. And hey, they're not going to be pretty. I think I remember talking about it the last time we were on the podcast, or 2 podcasts ago. If I'm in the playoffs, I want a team that is battle tested, that has played in these grimy games, that finds ways to win and everything like that, rather than a team that just blows out opponents. And I'm mainly kind of talking about the Detroit Lions. And the reason I say that is because this Lions team, as good as they are, they're very depleted on their the defensive side of the ball. So when they're not blowing these teams out too, how are they going to react? So they don't necessarily have that grit that these teams, not saying we're better than them, we've already lost to them. But like I said, it'll be very interesting to see how this shakes out. Again, this is a team that at this point with 5 games left, I think the worst this team does, absolute worst, sitting at 10-2 with 5 games to go, The absolute worst we do is 13-4. I think that's the worst we can do, and I think it'll be somewhere between 13-4, 14-3, or even 14-2, or no, 15-2. We're playing really good football. I kind of, truthfully, just like in my preseason predictions, I kind of look at that Seahawks game as not really sure what to expect. We haven't won. Fun fact, I already looked this up. Excuse me. We haven't won in Seattle since 2006. It'll be interesting to see what happens in that one. Yeah. So anyway, a good win against the Cardinals. Was a lot closer and heart wrenching. But hey, a win is a win. Doesn't matter how you get it. So this week we got the Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons coming to town. For anybody that is interested, I will be at that game. So if you see me, come up, say hi, give me a fist bump, and yeah, skull. Anyway, ultimately, I think even though this is Kirk's return to Minnesota, I think Kirk is currently playing very poorly and struggling mightily with interceptions right now. He is currently has a league high 13 interceptions on the year and has not thrown a TD pass in the last 3 games. Couple that with Brian Flores is dialing up pressure on Kirk. And let's not kid ourselves, we know firsthand that Kirk shuts down when he's got pressure, and Brian Flores knows this guy. So I think the Vikings get the win for their 6th straight and get close to clinching a playoff spot, which, fun fact, we can do this week, but it's not as simple as it seems. Actually, first of all, so I got the Vikes winning this one 31-17. Couple that with sorry. We can clinch a playoff victory this year, but it's not just with a straight up win. We need to win, and then these are the 2 easiest ways. We need to win, and then the Arizona-Seattle game needs to end in a tie, or the Rams need to lose, and the Cardinals need to lose. So we need to win, and we need either a tie in a game or for the Seahawks to win and can't remember who the Rams are playing, but the Rams to lose, and we can clinch a spot. We're one of a couple teams. Like I said, I think Detroit with a win against Green Bay next tomorrow night can clinch a spot. I think Philadelphia can clinch a spot, or the division possibly. But those are the 2 teams that I know can clinch playoff spots this upcoming week. So yeah, that's what I got for the Vikings. The lock of the week, I like the Titans as 3.5-point favorites over the Jags for a reason we talked about earlier. The Jaguars are trying to stay game offensively with several receivers down, and now Trevor Lawrence being out with his concussion. Mac Jones will do his best, but I think he's facing a better young quarterback in Will Levis. He's not amazing, but I think he's going to thrive in a situation like this and look really nice. He's making his case right now every week to remain the starter in his 3rd year and should, in my opinion, pick apart this Jaguars secondary with plenty of big play scoring targets, specifically to Nick Westbrook Akine. So I got the Titans winning that one 24-17. And then finally, the upset of the week. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I like the LA Chargers to outright beat the Chiefs. They are 3.5-point underdogs. So even if the Chiefs win by a last-second field goal, they still cover that. But I'd like them to win this game outright. The Chiefs have, and this is my reasoning, the Chiefs have lost 1 game this season, and that certainly wasn't at Arrowhead. At the same time, the MO for Andy Reid's team for at least the last month has been just getting out with a W and not worrying about it being pretty or with margin. They have either won their last 4 games by 3 points or less or lost. Now they're going up against a Chargers team who's been hitting its stride coming into town. So, like I said, I like the Chiefs to end up on the wrong side of things and not get a blunder. I actually think they're going to end up on the wrong side of a last-second field goal. Give me the Chargers winning at 31-30. And if it happens, you heard it here first. So, yeah, that's what I got for our picks. And then for inside the Vikings game, I think offensively, I just kind of kept it simple this time around. Offensively, I think Darnold outduels Kirk Cousins. What does that mean? I think he finishes with more passing yards and more passing touchdowns than Kirk O'Chains does, or the quarterback formerly known as Kirk O'Chains. Then on the defensive side of things, I think Brian Flores' defense is going to very much cause havoc on Kirk, as I think we're going to pick him off 3 times at least for the second straight game. I think that Atlanta offensive line is mid. They're not amazing. They're not shitty. But I think with the fact that they're not great or terrible either way, I think with the pressures we're able to bring, we haven't done a very good job of pass rushing, but I think this game has the capability of being a game that we can kind of get that step into the right direction. Because let's not kid ourselves, Kirk has never been a mobile guy, just isn't in his repertoire. And coming off of that Achilles injury, I don't think he's getting, I think if we can make that pocket small for him, it's going to be a long day for that Atlanta team. And like I said, quite frankly, if they weren't right there with Tampa for the division lead and they were a couple games out, I think Penix would be starting this game, truthfully. Yeah. So with that is what I have for you guys this week. Last thing, we have $30 rolling into this week from the Cardinals game. Nobody picked the first touchdown challenge right in the Cardinals game. Fun fact, nobody picked anybody from the Cardinals to do it, which was odd. But yeah, anyways, that's how it rolled. That's how it went. So yeah, $30 rolls into this week. I'll put the Venmo handle right here. Once again, first touchdown challenge. It is exactly what it sounds. It's the first touchdown scored between the two teams. So between the Falcons and the Cardinals is Wan'Dale Robinson gonna get a receiving touchdown for the first one. Is JJ going to rush for one? Venmo me $5. Tell me how you think the first touchdown of the game between the two teams is going to be scored. If you get it right, you get $30 from last week and the pot that is going to accumulate this week. Once again, love you guys. Hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Stay up to date on all the socials and reach out if you guys have any questions. Till next time, Minnie.